Filled the lobby within seconds.
Adam Forbes took the high ground on an island 2 hours from Phuket.
We had hills, so we ran up and the water came past the water, but once it got to the mountains, it stopped, whereas other islands were just flat, so it just took out everything.
Before the tsunami, Forbes was moments away from leaving the island on a boat.
No one died right where I was, but in the town 5 minutes away where I was headed, 40 people on the pier died.
These travelers share in common their relief, but they are also shaken by what might have been.
And these travelers we spoke with consider it a bittersweet moment when they arrived back in the U.S. They're happy to be here, but they feel badly that they couldn't help out the people they left behind. Jean?
Mary Snow, thank you. More powerful
island called Koh Lanta, just off of Phuket, when the water came crashing ashore. Adam Forbes is here, back in New York. He's with me now. He's only 18 years old. Adam, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Okay, I guess. Pretty shooken up, yet relieved to be home, but...
Your parents have got to be just, I mean, how are they?
They're glad to have me home, but still just filled with tears, and all they want to do is pamper me and continue to pray and thank God that I'm home. So.
Your mother's never going to let you travel again.
I'm not sure if she will, no.
You were traveling in the area for some 4 months. You were in Nepal. You wanted just a break in Thailand. When the waves started coming in, you were supposed to be out on a pier.
Yes, I was actually supposed to be going to the pier to get a boat in 10 minutes to head back to Bangkok and come home.
But you had to pay your hotel bill, so you're running late?
Yeah, I was paying my hotel bill, quickly finishing breakfast when the first wave started.
And I mean, there were some 40 people on that pier you were supposed to be on, and from what you heard, did they make it out?
No, from every story I heard, where the most deaths on Koh Lanta were all those waiting on the pier for the boats to take them to Bangkok. So it was just a moment of a few minutes that really brought me back here home.
When you hear that, I mean, does it seem real to you? I mean,
it's still sort of unreal. It's all just been so quick with plane flights and then coming home to family reunions and endless phone calls with friends. It doesn't seem real yet. It just seems sort of strange that a day and a half ago I was there and now suddenly I'm back to a safe home.
What was it like? I mean, when that water came, I mean, seeing it far away is one thing. When it actually comes up to you, I mean, what was it like?
The first wave was just looked like a wall of white coming towards you, and the sound just filled. It was just screams everywhere and just the crashing over. And by the second wave, we had run behind the buildings, but you could see the wave just coming over the bungalows and just splashing up everywhere and covering the road, just sort of pummeling towards you. It seemed like it would always stop, but the water just kept coming and coming.
Will you ever look at water the same way?
I will always appreciate the power of water for the rest of my life and just how much it can do and how much nature can destroy in just 1 or 2 minutes.
And it seems like a lot of people just kind of, I mean, they were just kind of standing there watching. I mean, some people even approached the water because it was so unusual.
Everyone was just so shocked, even the locals, because they'd never seen anything like that, many people just grabbed their cameras and started taking pictures in the chaos until eventually everyone was screaming, "You have to get to higher land," and all the locals were just pushing everyone into the jungle.
Adam, you're 18 years old. You've already seen a lot in your young life. We hope you have many years of seeing much better things in the future.
Well, thank you.
Good luck to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks
I'm so
a lot.
happy you're well and alive.
Yeah, it's great to be home. Thank you.
Well, we're trying to bring you as many different angles on this disaster as possible. The view from space tells a story as well. Now, we want to show you 2 sets of before and after photos of Kalutara Beach, haven't been there, on Sri Lanka's west coast. Now, the first image of the coastline was snapped last January. Watch the waterline as we change to the after photo taken Sunday, 4 hours after the tsunami struck. As the photos switch back and forth, notice the coastline is completely submerged in the after photo. All homes and structures along the water now are underwater, many no doubt washed away. Now let's check out the second set, the photos side by side. January on the left, the shoreline normal and calm. On the right, we see the swirling waves of the massive tsunami hitting land. The brown areas on the after photo are flooded streets. Kalutara Beach is about 25 miles south of Colombo. 37,000 people live there. Coming up next on this special edition of 360, loss and grief beyond our comprehension. The words of President Bush.
A wall of water headed toward him. Adam joins us now from New York with his story. Thanks for taking time out for us tonight, Adam.
Sure, no problem. It's good to be back home.
I bet. I know you were about to take a boat to Phuket when it all started, so what did you notice first? The water kind of withdrawing?
The first thing was just the water had gone so far out, and even all the fishing boats were just suddenly sitting up on sand.
And then you noticed waves starting to come in. So what did you see then?
Well, a few people started screaming that the wave was coming, and it just looked like a wall of white suddenly coming towards us. And at first, everyone just ran back towards the road and just stared in disbelief at the water crashing up over the bungalows towards us, and the water just kept coming and coming.
After the third wave, people apparently told you to run to higher ground, but you chose to stay. Why?
Well, I stayed for a few more waves, just trying to help carry some boats and motorbikes and trying to get people to get their children and at least some of their furniture and bags out of their houses. But once the waves got so big that the houses were just being washed out, we all had to run.
And so that's how you survived, by running into the hills?
Yeah, luckily there was a path up into the jungle right where we were, so once the waves looked like they were just too big, we just started running as fast as we could into the hills.
What about the children? Obviously, they can't run as fast as adults. Were people carrying children with them as they were running?
Some people were carrying children, and the owners of my bungalow actually handed their children to me and said, take them into the jungle. And about halfway up the trail, I got on their motorbike and drove the children into the jungle, maybe 3 of them. And once we got into the house, the whole community seemed to be taking care of all the children.
That's wonderful to hear. What does that town look like now?
Well, on the next day when I rode through on the back of a motorbike, it was just, everything seemed destroyed. The only places that still stood were a few of the really fancy resorts, but any of the villages and bungalows and houses were just gone, and the roads were just covered with debris.
Yeah, you were on vacation, but for those who lived there and lost everything, it must have been just devastating.
It was just horrible. That was the hardest part for me, is just seeing the tears on the locals' faces. And I mean, they had lost everything they've ever worked for in their lives.
How did you get home, Adam?
Luckily, I was able to sort of cram or sneak a seat onto a minibus on a car ferry off the island, and then got the last seat on Phuket Air back to Bangkok and was able to get a flight home.
What will you remember most about that harrowing experience?
I guess the memory for me was just once the locals just started screaming and running, and just that fear that it's not just a regular wave and this is something really horrible happening. Everyone at first just thought was taking pictures, and once the locals started just crying and grabbing their kids to flee, we knew that it was really something horrible.
Well, Adam, we are thankful that you made it out there and helped all those children too. Adam Forbes, tsunami survivor, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Security forces on alert for terrorist attacks across Southeast Asia are trying to remain vigilant despite the current chaos in that part of the world. Officials were put on high alert weeks ago after receiving warnings that Islamic terrorists were planning holiday attacks. Their focus has now shifted, of course, in the wake of the disaster, and that makes them more vulnerable to attack. But security experts say terrorist groups face the same problems as everybody else because local infrastructure is destroyed.
The destruction is relentless. Street after street utterly destroyed. Survivors stupefied by this carnage. In some places, only dogs survived, waiting in vain for their owners. But out of town, the horror of all those deaths is concentrated at one place. Lorries streaming in, carrying body after body.
I've seen some terrible, awful sights today, but this is by far the worst. They're burying bodies by the lorry load here in mass graves. They estimate there will be tens of thousands of corpses here by the end of the week. Dan Rivers, ITV News in Banda Aceh, Indonesia.
One scene that no one in the region can escape is that of corpses and makeshift morgues virtually everywhere. Matthew Chance in southern Thailand has more on the suffering felt by so many. We do want to warn you that some of the images you're about to see are disturbing.
Beneath this smashed concrete, a whole family is trapped. But this is no search for survivors, just more bodies for Thailand to count. This is where the awesome power of the tsunami struck this country hardest. The mud reminders of the many lives lived and lost here. Rescue workers told us only half the dead have yet been recovered. The final horrific cost of this disaster still in doubt. When we first arrived, it was total destruction, he says. There were bodies all over the place. We've cleared it up a lot, but I believe there are many more beneath this rubble. And for days,